Have you ever noticed how video games are not really easy, but they're also not impossibly hard? They're just challenging enough to keep you hooked. Learning is actually really similar. There's learning that is too hard, that is impossible because you aren't familiar with the basic concepts in a given subject. And there's learning that's way too easy, stuff maybe you already know. There is a Goldilocks zone or just right zone in learning, just like there is in gameplay, that is where growth happens for an individual learner. The zone of proximal development is that Goldilocks zone. There's what you can do, and there's what you can't do, and in between is the zone of proximal development. This is where you can accomplish a task or you can learn something with assistance. Okay? This is the gap between what you can do alone and then what you can do with help. Where you can do something with help is the zone of proximal development. So this is where learning happens. It's not what you already know. It's not tasks that are impossible. It's the just right zone. Now the zone will shift as you learn more and you become more capable, but there's always going to be a just right zone of proximal development where further learning will happen. This is a really core concept in instructional design and in educational psychology. It was created in a seminal work by Lev Vygotsky. He created the concept in relation to children, but this concept is very applicable to adult learning as well. But in the vein of that origin, let's talk about it. Now, learning, Vygotsky says, is fundamentally a social process that requires interaction. So I like to think of, reading to your kid. Now, kids aren't born knowing how to read. You have to teach them how to read. And there's a sweet spot when you're teaching someone how to read, right? You're not going to go from listening to a story to reading full sentences and paragraphs overnight. So when you're teaching someone something in the zone of proximal development, the tasks should be challenging, but they should be achievable with support. Okay? Keywords are with support. So if I'm teaching my son how to read, love the pigeon books, by the way, I'm not going to start with complete sentences. I'm not going to start with full-on paragraphs. I'm going to start someplace really small. He knows his letters already, so I'm going to teach him how to sound out words. For example, bus. He knows B goes ba, U goes S goes S. So together, we can sound out a specific word. That's where my son's zone of proximal development is in relation to reading. So of course that ZPD is going to vary based on the subject and who is the actual learner. In this case, I'm the more knowledgeable other that's helping him achieve something he couldn't do by himself in this zone of proximal development. So again, there's what you can do, there's what you can't do, and in between is that zone of proximal development. And the instructional target in any given subject for a particular learner is just above what they can do by themselves, okay? So this target zone is where someone can do something if they have a more knowledgeable other. That can be a teacher, that can be a parent, that can be your friend, it can be basically anybody. Depends always on the subject at hand. Now, again, Vygotsky is positing that learning is inherently social. The zone of proximal development is considered a socio-cultural theory, which means that not only is learning social, it happens between people, it happens in relationships, it's also grounded in the culture of those two people, okay? It's not some sort of thing floating outside that cultural experience shared by those two people. It's a social process first that is grounded in culture. And there's a lot more we can go into with the history of that, but that's enough for now. The bottom line here is that the magic of learning happens when we're challenged just beyond our comfort zone and we have the right support system in place, the right person support system in place. Learning is social and it is grounded in culture. And Zone of Proximal Development was developed in application to children and how they learn, but it can apply to adults too. Just think of apprenticeship. If you're learning to become an electrician, you have your classroom learning, and then you're out in the field learning from a master electrician. They're taking what you already know and they're taking you to that instructional target of actually putting it to practice in the real world. So, what do you think? Any questions remain? Put them in the comments. I'm Lindsay, and I cover instructional design, e-learning development, and all things online teaching and learning.